excited to be learning from Max tonight because Max is one of the most creative people I know. He's done so many creative things in his life, and to share creativity with us is such a gift.
No, thank you.
Yeah, we'll start in just a couple minutes. I'll do a little intro, but let's see who else we have. We have Edison. Welcome. Jesus, Elena, Rina, Katia, Claudia.
Happy to be here.
Welcome, Heriberto. Welcome.
Hello, good evening.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Eliderki, nice to see you. Woohoo. Antonella from Argentina. Thank you, Antonella, for letting us know where you're calling from. We've got people from Argentina, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Peru, Guanacaste.
Hi, present. Nice to be in here.
Oh, nice to have you with us, Katia. Super exciting. Let me check our Facebook world, see if we have any other comments there. We have Kari. Nope, just that, yeah. Nice. We have Ana Lorena from Esparza, Punta Arenas. We have a couple people from Punta Arenas today. That's great. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. I appreciate to be here.
Happy to have you. And thanks, Kari Pacheco, who said on Facebook she's happy to be here. Great. Yes, Luis, Liberia is a city in Costa Rica. It's in the northern part of Costa Rica. And that's where Max lives. And it's known as the White City, right?
Yes.
Because the church is very white. Are there other reasons? And the buildings are white. Is that right?
And especially because the if you go like different places, like in the mountains in Liberia, the soil and all the ground, it's white.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
It's not brown, it's not black, but it's white. So mainly because of that.
Teacher, like the road to Rincón de la Vieja.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we got people from Bagaces, other people from Liberia. That's great. That's great. Wonderful. Isabel, I'm sorry I'm glad you went to the dentist. I hope you're not in too much pain. Oh, Kari says she loves these webinars. That's great. Thank you, Kari. Well, Max, shall we get started?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I want to give you a family introduction as opposed to a formal introduction. How does that sound? Max, I'm so happy that you're here with us today. You are family.
Yes.
I've known Max for 25,000 years.
Oh my
That's
A
a lot.
long time. Maybe not that. I might be exaggerating just a little bit, but I would say at least 15 years. I think.
Yeah.
Because we had students.
18.
Remember,
Yes.
we took graduate students you helped us host graduate students many years ago. They did internships with you, and you've taken some of our courses. You've helped us out with some of our courses, and you have had an amazing trajectory. And as a professional, you've been the regional advisor in Liberia for many years. You worked at universities. You did a very creative doctorate that I think got so much to offer all of us with the learnings that you had there. You always have been organizing conferences for your teachers and getting your teachers opportunities to learn more. And when I think of you, I think of all those years that we've gone and had the opportunity to work with teachers and with your teachers in Liberia. So I'm just so grateful that you joined us today in this webinar to share about creativity. And it's a gift. I have a dog who's just about to bark. Come on, Choco. Choco wants to say hello to you too. It's just a gift to have you with us. And thank you for showing up. Thank you for bringing us your wisdom, your knowledge, your creativity, and your love. Because when I think of you, I always think about this love that you have for learning and a love for teachers and a love for students. And so thank you for bringing that tonight. Let me work on that noise. Sorry.
I did it.
Thanks. Ivan's here. Wonderful, Ivan.
Hello.
Yeah, Max. Yeah, you're great. Thank you for joining us today. Yeah, Mayor, can I add a little bit about Max?
Yeah, we're doing a family introduction. It doesn't have to be a formal one. So anything from
that's
family
good.
love you want to add? Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes. When I think about Max, is the time we spent together back in Nicaragua at conferences. We organized a Nicatizo, and Max was not only joining and presenting, but also bringing other Costa Rican teachers to share and learn together back in Nicaragua. So really deeply appreciate what you did, what you have done for not only Costa Rican teachers and students, but also in the region. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to share, and thank you for such kind of words. I mean, it's just like, wow, you sometimes, not because you want to feel, like that kind of proud that is not healthy, but it's good. Sometimes it's good to listen to those lovely words. And thank you so much. And you've been part of
I
my
hope
life.
you're not in too much pain.
It's good to listen. Okay, so shall we start?
Whenever you want, however you want. The floor is yours. I think
Okay.
we're going to spotlight you. That's all right. To unspot you, let us know.
Well, after that wonderful introduction that melted my heart. So as you realize in the the topic of this short talk is about creativity, which is important. It's always been important, but it's even more now because we definitely need, a good and a big dose of creativity in the classroom. And it happens that sometimes creativity might be seen as something that we are not born with, but we can also think about cultivating it, and promote it and enhance our own creativity inner, but also the creativity with our students as well. But I always think about whenever we do something, we have to lower our affective filter and feel kind of like in a good mood. And I thought of sharing this with you, which I think you are going to laugh a little bit. So for a while, so we need to laugh, we need to love, we need to care for each other, and so many things, good and positive vibes that we want in our lives, and we need it because sometimes we are so stuck in many things. But so I want to share this with all of you guys, just as a starter, as we teachers say, as a warm up, so I definitely want to share this with you guys. It'll be fun. I promise. Hope everyone definitely have some laugh about this. So let's listen to this. And let me know if you listen to.
goes to the discotheque.
Can you, does everyone listen? Yes?
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm gonna go a little bit back in the picture.
But before we begin, have you guys heard the joke about the mushroom that goes to the discotheque? A mushroom walks into a discotheque and he walks up to a lady and he asks her to dance. She says, "Ah, gross, no, you're a mushroom." So he walks up to another lady and asks her to dance. "Ma'am, not interested." Lady after lady after lady, rejected, rejected, rejected. Nobody wants to dance with him. Finally, the mushroom walks over to the bartender and he's so confused. He says, "I don't get it. Why does nobody want to dance with me? I mean, I'm a fun guy." See, this joke has a strong.
So I'm a fun guy. So a little bit of, you know, laughter. I think it's good. And it has a purpose, the video, because later on in the presentation, we'll see how to use a little bit of this in your classes, because we definitely need some fun in class. Okay, so good. So Ivan, are you going to share the presentation, please? Or should I do it, or how?
Yeah, you share.
I can do, but the one, you know.
I can also share, Max. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, good, great.
Let me share them. Okay. Let me just put it in just interest of view.
Yeah, that was fun. That's true. So just to give you a little bit of, you know, of an introduction. So as I mentioned earlier, in creativity, it's very important. And you might be thinking, I'm not creative. But you know, the idea of this conference, little mini conference about creativity is to, you know, talk about some of the major things we can do about what creativity is all about, and how can we enhance or foster creativity in our classes, in our classroom with our students. Ivan, it seems that something happened. We can see the presentation. So creativity, some ideas about creativity. When we think about the word, it's and these are some of the things that it came up to my mind, like it's thinking out of the box, you know, which means that we have to do things in a different way, or coming up with fresh or divergent responses. And you'll see that creativity also has a neurological thing too, because we use different kind of thinking, like divergent thinking. And we can also say that creativity, it's about different ways of looking at problems. So in a pretty general sense, the idea of creativity is to do things in different ways that definitely fit someone's needs or interests and spark what we want our students to, in this case, talking about education and teaching in class, is about enhancing as much as possible an emergent way of learning, you know, a different way, and break up to, you know, some of the barriers and some of those structures that sometimes we feel tied to. So these are just 3 ideas I want you to think about, and think about yourself in your practice, because it's also about reflecting upon what you do in class and how you do things in class. So you can ask yourself, like, am I thinking out of the box when I lesson plan? Do my students actually think out of the box, or do they actually come up with different ideas, fresh, or, you know, and their responses are different because they look things in a different way? And if they also look to solve problems through different mirrors. So it's all about thinking about that. So the next slide. Next, please. So I want to quickly think, I'm not going to go over all of the ideas, but emphasize some of these ideas about why creativity is so important in the class. So, you know, one of the things that I always think about when I think about creativity in the class is that encouragement that it gives learners to be engaged and encourage them to be, you know, in class, to be present and mindful about what we do, how we do, and why we do it. So definitely when we lesson plan in a way that it's creative, that it takes them and think in a different way, and they experience things in different ways. It's about, you know, being engaged. We can also say that it improves their ability to focus on what they're doing on every task. So that means that they're going to be, you know, more into what we're doing in class. And some of the major complaints that we teachers have in classes that students deviate, or they completely lost track of what we're doing and they're not engaged or paying attention. So if you turn your classes into a creative process, definitely your students will be in class. They will focus on class. Something also important is that creativity allows you or your students to express their ideas, to express different things they feel, they think, they reason in different ways. So I like that too. And there's also an opportunity for them to promote risk-taking and iteration, which is important. That we need our students to, you know, risk-take when they are learning, and especially in English, because it's a language acquisition process, and they definitely need to risk to participate in class, to express their ideas, no matter if, you know, the things, if things are well constructed from the grammar point of view, or correctly pronounced, or, you know, intelligibly pronounced, but it's an opportunity for them to express. So there are many reasons creativity must be enhanced in class and implemented in class. When we lesson plan, we think of our students and do this as center student process and not a teacher-centered process, but more thinking about our students. So creativity is about making basically a change in the way we do in class. So it is about that. We can link this to innovation as well, which is here the idea. It is a prerequisite for innovation in class. So creativity, it's about innovating in class. It's about giving solutions. It's about thinking about or thinking in different ways to look at different angles. And that's what we have to do as teachers. How can we, you know, ask ourselves questions such as, like, how can do this in a way that it's more meaningful, more impactful, more divergent and emergent. So creativity links here, and this is, I think it's important. Creativity links the head and heart. So remember, education, every learning process, it's a connection between the brain and the heart. So everything has to be, you know, not only cognitive, but also emotionally, where we can awake some of those feelings and emotions, and then so they go good.
Bluetooth.
In the next slide, Ivan, please. I'd like to give some statistics about how important creativity is in the classroom. For example, in terms of those benefits that we talk about creativity, we can say that 66% of creativity allows students to express themselves. 64% leads to more engaged and confident learners. 61% help students think about outside the square and problem solved. As well, we can say that 58% help students to have a deeper understanding of the subject matter. 57% give students a sense of pride and accomplishment in the work, and 54% reduces stress and anxiety. And I think I like to highlight that idea that sometimes they're so stressed and anxious when learning a second language that if we do a class where they feel comfortable and we enhance lots of creative ways to look at learning and to experience learning from this perspective of experiential learning, learners feel so much less stress. So basically it's about that. And in this sense, creativity has two C's, the big C and the little c, which I think it's important. So the big C refers, and I like, when I researched about this some time ago in a research paper, the big C refers to learning outcomes which are new and original for a person. So this big C, it's about thinking completely from or having a new and original idea, for a person in terms of the current age and the stage of development, which is important because we have to consider their development, their age, right? And of course, their English level. And the little c refers to this process of students creatively constructing and communicating meaningful in every day. It's interactional context of the classroom, and where they use the repertoire that they currently had available. So these are two important ideas because if we think of, in terms of big C or little c, these help us to guide the process of implementing creative pedagogical strategies in the classroom. So we have these two, big and little c, which is important. Also in the next slide, this is like a bit of theoretical foundation, so you can have, this idea of what to take into account based on literature. I'm going to give you some practical ideas of how to implement this. So this talks about different 7, pillars of creativity, and I think that we have to implement them because we definitely need to build up a positive self-esteem. So we have to reinforce. Yes, we're sharing. Maybe, Jesus, you're having kind of internet problems. So this positive self-esteem has to be, as you see, this is very important from within, from this, the self-esteem process. It's also, as I said, this idea of connecting the brain and also other parts, which are not cognitive, but also psychological and emotional. So this positive self-esteem as a class environment, it's definitely mandatory. We cannot provide something or ask something if we not provide that to our students. Like, we have to model creativity ourselves as teachers. So if we cannot ask them to be creative, if we are not being an example to our students. So if we implement different ways, and that begins from the very moment that we enter the class, or your students enter the class, if they look at the seating arrangement in class in different ways, every week you change, or that gives a sense of difference in classroom. It's important not to, give only one choice to our students if we want them to think in a different way or perceive things, and also implement divergent thinking if just offering one single choice. So therefore, we have to offer our students different choices. And I was thinking about this when we implement the integrated mini projects in our units. So sometimes because of practicalities, we think that this would be the only way to do something in the integrated mini project. But I think it's better if we give them students different choices for them to select which one they feel more comfortable with. And also this gives them the opportunity to select something that it's more about their way of learning. So kind of DUA, right? Kind of implement the universal designs for learning, offering different options, which is important. It's important to think creative. I mean, to ask questions. If we go back, Ivan, a little bit, use different questioning or use questions effectively. So something I learned at the with Mary in the process is to use lots of CCQ or checking comprehension questions in order to determine students have actually figure out what they're supposed to do, and using questions effectively will give them, you know, a good start for them to work towards an achievable goal. Make connections. Make connections is about linking. You know, we have to think holistically in an integrated way. So make these connections not only for us as teachers, but also for learners, how everything connects to each other. So this gives a sense of, you know, of implementing and empowering creativity in classroom, and of course exploring ideas as well. Not only one way of looking at things, but also giving different inputs for them to explore different ideas in order to get, you know, the possible ways to, you know, I don't know, when applying a project-based learning or a problem-based learning activity in class. And last but not least, it's important to encourage critical reflection, because it's part of creativity. How would you do this in a different way? What, you know, ask them like this critical reflection, or you can use questions, or you can have them to, you can use different kind of a graphic organizer to ask them how would they do this in a different way? What if they have, you know, things like that? So these are the 7 pillars of creativity. Now we can go to the next one. So, and this takes us out of these 7 pillars, we have the framework for learning creativity. And one of the main things in this regard is initiation. And everything starts from curiosity. We have to awake students' curiosity. The brain itself, by nature, is curious. So if we, you know, as we trigger curiosity in students' curiosity, they will feel more connected to and curious and engaged. So they're going to be open to experience and continue to be motivated to until they find or they arrive to the end of it. So this is important whenever we want to enhance creativity in classroom. And something that I found very interesting in the process when I teach a class is that they are more tolerant towards ambiguity, because for no one is a secret that uncertainty, we were not raised and educated for uncertainty. On the other hand, we're more about the certainty, but it happens that uncertainty, it's important because as uncertainty as per se, it's a good start for them to become more creative and being proactive in class, and also it helps them to prepare for, you know, face the real world when they turn into the you know, the market as grown-ups. So after you have definitely initiated or awake their curiosity, then operation, it's is in the process. Actually, we can go to the next one because it has different aspects even. Because as I said, curiosity, it's the key of learning. It facilitates some of the things I said, it's in this slide. So we can go to next one because time, it's kind of like a constraint. Operation. So we have different ways to operate. And we think of operation in 3 different ways. As a creative thinking process, as a creative teaching process, and as a creative learning process. So, but what does each mean in more specifically? Creative thinking, it's about that process that leads to original and adapted ideas and solutions or insights. And we're going to look at some examples of how we can enhance through PBL and some other strategies to be more creative when thinking. It's to see things divergently. That means to look at things from different angles and perspectives. And this is pretty much for both teachers and students, but more specifically for teachers, we have to be creative when teaching, which is apply or employ imaginative approaches so we can make learning more interesting and exciting and more effective. The purpose basically of being creative when we teach or when we lesson plan something for our students is to develop learners' creative thinking. So whenever we plan a lesson, we have to think, is this enough to make them think creatively? Because if you provide them, like, you know, structure exercises where everything is the same, they're going to lose interest very quickly. So creative teaching has been, in terms of a definition, conceptualized as a unique and customized and meaningful exchange of knowledge among individuals in a learning context. So creative teaching, it's basically make an effort to lesson plan and execute your lesson plan in ways that are unexpected for your students and that always surprise and make them curious about what's coming next. And from the creative learning thing, this is a learning center perspective. As I said, we have to put the student and place students in the middle, in the center of the learning teaching process. It's not about us, but about our students. Therefore, it should be interactive. It should encourage learners to experiment, to explore different possibilities, to come up with an outcome. It's about being playful in class. It's this attitude we need to have. We need to definitely do the things in very meaningful and different ways. The ultimate goal is to definitely unleash an individual's potential in many ways as possible. And therefore, they're going to develop a lot of metacognition because it's very related. Next. And the last, which is that of thing that we use, which is the content, is that we find in the program, in the English program. So the content can be seen also in 3 different ways from the perspective of the problem finding, which is, you know, how can I make this into let's say a problem for students, or a challenge for students, because problem finding is that detection of the need based on a choice between an existing situation and unexpected creation. So whenever we look at a theme in the English program or any lesson or topic or content that we have to develop in our classes, we have to always look at both sides, the existing situation and unexpected creation, because the idea is for students to create something they feel that so that they feel they created something. And it uses convergent and divergent process to identify this process. So this convergency is between the existing and expected creation, and diverging is to look things from different angles. But problem finding couldn't exist with problem solving. We find the problem and students need to solve this problem. So it's about thinking creatively. And in creativity, we always think about insight, which is that thing that we all have when something, as Mexicans say, me llegó agua al tinaco, or this is an aha moment, like, now I understand, or I know how to solve this situation, or I know, I have an idea that might fit, that might work. So insight is an important aspect of problem solving. And a problem is successfully solved via preparation. So students prepare, an incubation of the idea, an illumination, and then verification, which is basically verify whether that we are just facilitating as a learner from the perspective of the learner, it's basically viable. And always the reflective process. So it's this process of evaluating in terms of this active divergence and convergence. It's a critical evaluation. So in this case, we can use a template or a graphic organizer, or even an qualitative or an assessment worksheet from where they can actually do this critical evaluation of what they have actually performed during a task in class. So these are the, 3 important elements. Next. And I was kind of hesitant to include this in the presentation, but I couldn't avoid it. I mean, we cannot deny the fact that that education, it's an art, but it's also a science. So from this science perspective, creativity in the brain play, it's there in different, within the brain in different parts. So some research suggests that the frontal lobe of the frontal cortex in the picture here in the image, it's involved in this process, as well as the hippocampus and the white matter. So basically, the frontal cortex, it's the center, it's part of the center for learning, and it uses the memory. And the memory, basically in this frontal cortex, is about the working memory. So this helps us to, to work and to execute different actions in class. So this is the executive center for students to work in class and to execute different ideas, to think, to generate. It's this part where the creative thinking process takes place, but via memory. On the other hand, the hippocampus, this is the memory of the things that you can basically declare. So we use the hippocampus in this, and all of the white matter, which is basically ganglia. It's the structure deep in the brain, and this helps, to process information, organizes and create more more connections in the brain via synapses and the neurons and stuff. So there is a scientific foundation for this. So we have to be, mindful about this. And the brain's network has three different aspects, which is the default, the executive, and the salience thing that happens in the brain. So these three aspects are within the idea of the of creativity in the brain, which I think it's important. Maybe this is going to trigger some curiosity in you to look more about that idea of how the brain is related to creativity. Next. And now we're coming to this, how to say, the practical part. Can we go back one slide, because we have two kind of similar. The first, okay, this one, it's from the teacher, from the perspective of the teacher, or the teacher's perspective. And this is an acronym that we use in order to enhance creativity in a classroom, which is SCAMPER. Basically, SCAMPER means substitute, combine, adapt, modify, put to another use, eliminate or minimize, and rearrange. So if we think about our, responsibility when we organize the learning process for our students, we can think about our lesson plan and do some kind of reflection process. So you can think about what can be replaced in my teaching by means of substituting. Or for example, with the C, combine, what can be combined or added to my teaching in order to make it more creative? Because SCAMPER, it's a strategy for teachers or anyone to try to be more creative. Or for example, adapt. How can I adapt in a way, adapt something in my, my teaching in a way it benefit my students? Or modify something, like what can be modified to add extra value to my teaching, to my lesson, to this exercise. You can adapt it in a way that it's, practical for what you do in class with your students. Or for example, the P, how can I put these things to other uses? Like use this, maybe you are using this strategy or this technique or this activity, and then you can put it to another use for another content or for another teaching process in class. Sometimes we also, because for example, thinking about a book, a textbook. So maybe that activity in the textbook can be eliminated or minimized. So you can ask yourself, like, what can I eliminate or simplify in this activity in the book, for example, or in your lesson plan to simplify or eliminate because it doesn't really work. And also rearrange. How can I change or reorder an activity from different perspective, or reverse something I was supposed to do in class, or my entire methodology or part of my methodology? And what would I do if I had to do this process in reverse, which means, changing the order or the positions of the activities in class. So this is a good way to think about implementing creativity from this perspective. In the next one, it's for students. If we have our students to do something, a task or integrated mini project in class, we can do something like this and have them to think carefully, like, what can I substitute so as to make an improvement? For example, we have, a project-based learning activity, or we're using any other, activity in class. What ideas, materials, or features, processes, people, products, or components can I combine to make it more creative? Which ideas could I adapt or copy or borrow from others people's experience? What can you remove or make smaller, condense, lower, shorter, lighter? or understate. What else can it be used for? What can I remove without altering its function? For example, if you have them to create a new app, if they're working on creating apps in one of the units about technology and media and stuff. So what can I remove without altering its function? What can I rearrange in some way? I can interchange component, the pattern, or the layout. So as you can see, Scamper is just it's just an acronym, very flexible, that you can use in order to make your activities, your teaching, more creative, to change a lot what you do in class. So Scamper is very good. Next. So basically, creative thinking can be boosted through play, practice, and experience. We need to play a lot in class, practice with our students as much as possible, and have them to experience. Experience means hands-on activities in class, have them to, create. Next. Therefore, in this sense, we have different examples. I'm providing different examples here, like problem-based learning framework. And this is an example that I thought of, share with you. For example, let's say that you guys are talking and developing an activity about, or based on a unit about invasive species. So what you basically do is have your students work in different collaborative teams and do some kind of brainstorming with the different teams. You do all the administrative tasks and activities to make them working and sell them the idea that a community, or team work together and each other helps to improve, and you always set them different goals and for every task. So each team is going to bring different specific local invasive species that it's impacting their community. And I thought about the cockroach here in Costa Rica, more specifically in Tarcoles. So you contextualize, you make some situated learning process for students, something they already know and they can feel connected to. So once you have your groups together and they have identified a problem, for example, the cocos in Tarcoles, and these are invasive species, then they start, generating ideas, brainstorming different ways to look at the problem in depth. So what they can do is, for example, research about this problem, amplify the problem, what human activities that can mitigate the problem, the impact of these invasive species on other species, the ecological and economic consequences, and different perspectives. And then students research a little bit more. You can use computers, you can have them to use different frameworks, like completing different tasks. You can give them, websites, and they start doing this research. It is very important to have them to use different ways to access information. So, and you can give them, different options. So basically, when you set up a problem, students can think in a creative way in order to solve the problems. And so you give them a framework of the expected outcomes about the problem, the solutions that they can find in order to mitigate the problem of some other invasive species on different aspects, such as I said, the ecological, economic impact, and some other species in the ecosystem. Next. Just to finish this activity for your students, what you can have is, they are going to, once they have found or come up with different solutions in mind, they put them together kind of a plan, and then basically they share their ideas. If they can create different, they can use technology, or they can use different materials to present and share that, and then create a discussion in class. So this would be an example of how to use creativity using problem-based learning. The following example after this one, it's also related to the joke at the very beginning. Have you ever heard about storytelling with the Pixar way? Pixar basically uses, Pixar creates stories. For example, let's talk about Nemo, the movie. Well, they sketch and they follow a specific sequence. So they use a structure. As you can see, everything begins with a structure. In this case, the joke has 3 different parts for this based on the structure, which is, the mushroom goes to a disco, and then the mushroom asks the girls to dance with him, and then he feels frustrated, and then he says, how come no one wants to dance with me if I am a fungi, right? So everything has an opening, middle, and end. So we can, have our students to using storytelling and using a framework like this to turn something, a content into something creative. For example, in the next slide, Ivan, we can look at a way of using storytelling as a creative and fun activity. And the structure is very basic. It is not complicated at all. You only have to provide them with the necessary linguistic, structures and vocabulary for them. And the structure is this on the side here on the left. So you basically give them these sentence starters, and then they come up based on, their creativity and their linguistic resources. They can finish the stories. And this on the other side is an example of what students created. You can have them to do this in small communities of practice or in small teams in class. So they use this kind of template here. Once upon a time there was, and then they think of something, right? Every day, one day, because of that, until finally. So using this, they come up with creative ways of producing language. It is not, so structured, because they can come up with their own ideas. It just maybe yeah, thank you. Here we have, I don't know, a couple sentences like once upon a time there was, and then they came up with the idea of a scientist who was interested in how coastal forests, coal mangroves manage to avoid submergence. It's a little bit high, but they can create something more based on their English level. Every day the scientists read journal articles. One day the scientists collected cores for beneath, and so on, until he or she or the whole group created the end of the whole story. So this is the Pixar formula to write, a story, and then they can share the story. And something I liked is that you can, out of every story, you can ask, or you can suggest your students to write different questions to be asked to the audience, like, what was the story about? What happened with something? What's the problem in the story? What is, questions in order to check understanding. So they keep, engaged into what others did in class based on the story. And also it's a way to assess your students' understanding by means of asking, whether you ask yourself the questions or you ask your students to ask write questions and ask the questions to the audience in class. So this is another example. This one I like it a lot because they're pretty much into movies and other things. Like, for example, this activity is for transforming your post-reading activities. When we do, and we can also do it like orally as well. It's just to look at different options. And so the post-reading activity could be based on I don't know, maybe a book or a movie or a clip that you implemented in class. And what you do is, you know, take the elements or the characters from the story and have your students to use their imagination in order to expand their story telling skills. Like, for example, with Harry Potter, you ask questions and you think out of the box. Like, for example, what was Harry Potter like as a child? And so they have to use their creativity, their imagination in order to come up with unique and different possible answers. Or another question, what if Harry quit magic? What would be his new job? So, because we know how the whole book and the movie is all about, but if you provide them with divergence through questioning, you can come up with different imaginative and creative ideas or answers. So transforming your post-reading activities into this creative, into this one is another possibility, and you do something different in class. This is another example. I think it's very interesting, and I don't know if you have ever seen an activity like this. You can use, you can select an appropriate text, and according to your students' level, it could be a newspaper, it could be a magazine, it could be something you write, you can write yourself for your students. So basically, it's turn any paper, any article into a poetic masterpiece. So what basically students do is to isolate those unnecessary words. I mean, like, you know, like in the example here, in this picture, and then piece together those single words or short phrases from the article or the newspaper, or, you know, any kind of text that you use to create a poetry or even a short story, such as in the example. So this is basically an example from a newspaper article, and look at the coherence and how it is the product. Like, the word makes regular people come to life, something like this. It's a different look at that. And this one, I think this is the last one. This is what we call reverse brainstorming. Basically, we know brainstorming, the traditional way to look at brainstorming. You ask your students a question, so you ask them to say something about a topic, and then you write some of those ideas on the board, etc. But there is a I don't know if that has actually happened to some of you, but maybe you're introducing the topic and then you say, let's do some brainstorming about this new topic or about this, and then they run out of ideas. So reverse brainstorming is a way to awake students' creativity in terms of thinking and language, because it requires students to, you know, to list what they not worked in a given scenario. So I use this example. Here. So for example, let's say that we're thinking about a mug, you know, so we ask our students, like, this was a silly example, but it works. So you ask your students to list all of the different uses they can think of for a mug. So they can say something, you know, basic, like to drink a coffee, to trap an insect, and then all of a sudden they run out of ideas. So at a certain point, you know, they get stuck And this is where you use reverse brainstorming. How can you do that? What you do is, you know, reversing in a way that to ask your students to develop ideas here of how a map cannot be used. Oh, sorry, here for the problem, cannot be used, right? And so this provides an opportunity to students to begin to generate those new ideas of how this mock cannot be used. So, for example, they can say, I can play video games on a mock, right now on a mock, but I can make a tablecloth. Yeah, wonderful. Wonderful that you use it in class. But I can make a tabletop game with a mug and a big bag that I tossed. Or I can eat a regular mug, but I can build a mug out of cookie dough, bake it, and now I have an edible mug. So these are, you know, ways to create and have them to think in a different way and come up with unique and original ideas and stimulate the brain to think creatively. So reverse brainstorming, it's wonderful. So as you can see, there are many things that we can do in class. It's just in the end, the conclusion of this very short talk about creativity is that we have to think, as teachers, we have to think out of the box and always look for opportunities for students and even for us to do things in a different way. And students will definitely think that, because their learning styles and the lots of inputs coming from, you know, and stimulus from technology and other means keeps their brain wired and electrified in a way that sometimes we cannot manage, and we cannot you know, we cannot, you know, adjust to that energy students have nowadays, because our traditional way of teaching is not based or does not fulfill their needs. So we have to go along with those changes. So that would be this these ideas about creativity, a little bit of foundations on theoretical ideas, but also some practical ideas that might be implemented. And this is only just a little bit of the many things that you can think of and you can create. What do you think about this? How do you find these ideas? Do you think you can do something like this in class, or think of something how you can adapt materials or these activities in class? What would you do?
Thanks, Max. I removed the spotlight and I'm excited to hear what people have to say. I just want to share that reverse brainstorming also seemed exciting to me. I thought with creativity, you cannot get bored.
No.
Questions, comments for Max? Oh, thank you, Elan, for sharing the slides. If you want to unmute and ask a question, join us here. Please feel free, or make a comment.
Yeah, Jesus says that contextualize information. Yeah. Have you heard about situated learning? Situated and contextual learning, it's so important. Make connections to what's around students in order to make it more meaningful. What's familiar to them, so that creates relevancy for students, which I think it's a buzzword. It's an important word. Relevancy. If something is not relevant, if something does not connect to learners, it would not be meaningful to them. Remember that. Right, Mary?
Yes, absolutely. And Eli Derki writes, classroom creativity really matters a lot. Thanks a lot. Really matters. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Eli Derki.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and forget about that idea that we're not creative. I mean, this is something we can stimulate, we can implement, and it's just to think in a different way, think out of the box.
Yeah. 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 Melina writes, it's interesting, especially for segundo ciclo. Teenagers are difficult nowadays. Yeah, I think creativity brings everybody alive. Everybody, kids, teenagers, adults. But yes, Melina, teenagers can be challenging for sure.
Yeah,
guys.
but, you know,
Hey.
yes.
Hi. So I was actually thinking through your chat. Sorry, I was thinking through your talk that it's you know, one may think that you are gonna sit and plan and everything's gonna come out of the blue, but it's not like that. You actually have to, you know, you have to read a lot, you have to go through a lot of practices so you can actually think out of the box. It's not just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do this. No, you have to have the exercises to do so. So you actually have to have the material, you have to have the time to think about it. And you know, you see something else elsewhere and it's like, I can use that because you know you can use that, but you have to take the time.
Yeah, I agree that that we need to invest some time, but this is a good investment. And remember that as any other things we do on a daily basis, I think creativity can turn into something that we develop like a skill. You know, you as long as you keep doing something in different ways, using different materials, and sometimes we don't need to invest a lot in terms of materials. It's just to think about how can we adapt or reorganize this activity into something that definitely impact learners' learning. So I think creativity can be, you know, can be robust. I will use that word. Can be truly robust if you keep, you know, practicing, and you don't have to do this, you know, all at once. You can, you know, do this in small steps, you know, do it gradually, a little bit of, and try these new ideas. And yes, at first it requires us from, you know, to invest a little bit of time, maybe doing some research about the topic and read a little bit more. But once it's in there, then you can continue, and then you become more creative, and you do things in a different way.
Max, we have some other comments here. Karen Daniela Ruiz Juarez writes, in today's students' world, connecting is not easy, but we do have to try harder because it's the key for successful learning. And there's a couple of gratitudes from Maria Matute and Ana Lorena, just saying thank you and appreciation. Yorhani Esquivel writes, creativity makes lessons more interactive and attractive for students. If students enjoy a class, it means meaningful learning is taking place inside their minds. Let's see. Melina writes, adapt and reorganize are good words. And Jesus offers us, primary is also challenging, but it's easier in first and second ciclo than in high school. We can model things better than in other cycles. It's a matter of interest. And Edison writes, ask your students to help the teacher on ideas on how to make the classes more creative. Yeah. Those are some comments for you.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. I think this is a good start. You know, it's not very often that we think about creativity, because we're so mechanical. At some point, we turn into a very mechanical teacher. But what if I give a little twist to this activity? Start doing that. What if I do this, instead of doing this, I do this? I mean, it's just, you know, try, just give it a try. Dare to be new and not repeated. I would say that. I like that. Dare to be new and not repeated.
Do we have some more? Would you like to hear the more comments? Isabel Alvarez says, we must connect with students. It's not easy. easy with teenagers, but we can do it by connecting with ourselves first. What we really want to do in the challenging job. Heriberto says, the more creative I am with my students, the more interested they are in learning without even noticing it.
Yes,
And Edison,
wonderful.
And Edison writes, teachers need to realize that we do not have all the answers, so we need to ask for help from others.
Yeah. Thank you for such a comment, because Edison, that's true. We are not almighty. They need to know that we have some sort of, I don't know if authority would be the right word, but at some point we need to, be on the same level with them, because we would always need them to realize that they're going to teach us something.
Yeah.
And that something is, it's our nutrient to start making changes, adapting and reinventing ourselves. I love those words, reinventing ourselves. Yes. Yeah, we teach because we love to learn. Yes, Edison, that's absolutely true.
I like what Heriberto wrote about, the more creative I am with my students, the more interested they are in learning without noticing it. I think that's another exciting piece of learning, is when it happens without it being a really forced thing, but it comes from inside and becomes engaging and fun. I remember when I was in graduate school many years ago, I talked about fun being wanting to be one of the things that I wanted my students to have. And I remember my professor sort of saying, that's not really what we're looking for in learning. And I didn't totally agree with him. I think we do want fun. I do want fun in part of our learning and part of the classroom, but fun that's oriented towards learning, as opposed to fun that's oriented towards other things. And creativity for me brings that fun. I have a lot of fun with creativity. So, yeah.
Livia, I didn't. Livia, hello, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Livia Gamboa, she's a colleague, an English teacher and an advisor in San Carlos. Thanks for joining us.
And she also took the TESOL certificate course with us.
Oh, really? That's wonderful.
Thank you, Livia. She writes, thanks for such an interesting challenge. One important thing you said and repeated, we need to learn and practice how to be creative. It's easier as we try it. Thanks.
Yes.
It is.
And and I don't know, but I know that you have experienced it, but sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming. And I know that you might, have that in mind, that the administrative responsibilities can definitely be a hinder in our systems. All over the world, not only in Costa Rica. Don't think this is only Costa Rica. The world over, it's immersed in this amount of paperwork. Right, Mary, because we have explored, we have seen other ministries of education, and it's the same story, right? But we need to continue and work hard towards this idea of doing things in a different way, because actually it's actually boring. I've seen teachers using the same lesson plan for over many years. I mean, how would you feel doing the same over and over and over? It's like eating the same food every day. I mean, so why don't you try yourself and give yourself an opportunity to do things in a different way, for not only for your student, but also for yourself, because it's fun. It's just exciting. You feel, the stamina in your classes when you're trying something out new in class.
Yeah, it's for us as well. You're absolutely right. We also have some new comments here. Karen, right? Karen Daniela writes, when students are having fun in their learning process, we as teachers feel great, motivated, It's the fuel we need to continue. And Melina Barahona writes, students can help us to create. They have the best ideas. They watch a lot of programs and say, teacher, can we do something like this? Or teachers can give them the possibility to create and participate. Classes are not only for development. Yeah. Great. Thanks so much.
Sure, they give us some feedback on how they like their learning process.
Yes, they do. And speaking of feedback, we have a feedback form, which I'm putting the link here in the chat. If you all could fill it out, we would really appreciate it. It's a few questions. It helps us learn about your experiences. And you can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. It would be great to connect with you all there. Max, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for such an amazing opportunity. Definitely, this is an nurturing, space for all of us, because we need to renew our energies and our ideas, and we deserve this. Actually, thank you very much, because you guys created this, and I think it's very nutritious. Remember, nutritious. I remember that when I took when I was in there in San Carlos in
Centro Espiral Maná.
Centro Espiral Maná, and I remember, yeah, it's very nutritious. This process is nutritious.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yvonne, is there anything you'd like to add? Oh,
Yeah.
thanks for putting the
I'd
links
like
in.
to express gratitude to participants joining from different parts of the world and sharing their ideas and comments and questions in the chat. Thank you for joining. We're so happy to have you all together. And I share the slides twice in PDF format, so you have access to information our friend Max Arias will share in tonight. And also you can find the links of social media, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So you can follow us and stay tuned, because we will be doing more of this. We're learning together, learning from each other. So we will be doing MEP Mondays. Thank you, Max.
You're welcome. Thank you for such an opportunity.
Thank you all so much. And thanks for the people on Facebook that joined us. We had Jaime and Kajima. We had Jamie Enriquez from Bluefields, which was great. Paz Lucita. Pedro Morales from Chiripo. Gracia from Honduras. Cari
Wow.
Pacheco. We have 8 people who are still online with us now. Thank you all for joining us.
From there's a person from Nicaragua.
Yeah, we had Jamie Enriquez, who's from Bluefields.
Bluefields, wow.
Yeah, I don't know where she is now, but Jamie came to Costa Rica and her father did too, which was so wonderful. He was such a sweetheart.
Oh my God.
Oh, it's so fun to have multiple generations. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
from many countries, many blessings.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Eliderki. Dominican Republic.
Nice.
Yay. So nice to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Yes, Luis.
May you all have a great week. We'll be back soon with our next speaker, our next Monday night speaker. Max, thank you so much.
Thank you. Lots of love to everybody.
To you too. You too.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank
Leigh.
you. Thank you.
Luis, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us, Luis. Take care of yourself. Say hi to all
Thanks,
the
Livia.
It was nice to learn. There was a
Jesus.
lot of learning. There was a lot of learning to be done. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for completing the feedback form too. Yeah, I can share it again, Mary.
Yeah, sure. Thank
Yes.
you, Jesus. Tashani, Isabel, Marianela, Ana Lorena, Melina, Livia. So nice to have you with us, Livia. Our neighbor. Rina, Sabir, Siani, Anna, Lilia, Ana Lorena, welcome, welcome. And PC, whoever you are, PC. Very happy to have you with us. Oh, Max, what's your dog's name?
Molly,
Molly, how sweet.
it's a pincher.
My dogs are sleeping. Can you see?
Oh,
Oh, oh gosh.
Well, thank you
good
very
night, everyone.
much.
Good day, everyone. Thank you. Thank you,
Have a
Max.
good, have a very good night. Rest a lot.
Tashani,
Because-
Tashani de Nicaragua también, del Caribe. Welcome,
Oh,
Tashani.
Tashani.
Qué bueno.
Great.
Welcome. So happy to have you with us. Wow. All righty. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to close off the Facebook. Thank you, everybody,
Okay.
on Facebook land. And I'm going to stop our recording. Thank you, everyone.